Well, hello. Hello, hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. My sleep is a complete mess. I don't know what was going on, but I could not fall asleep. And I ended up being up until 8:30 in the morning. I had to cancel personal readings. I fell asleep again, woke up at 10 a.m., which is because I had it set for 10. Um, yeah, it wasn't going to happen. I finally fell back asleep again and woke up at something like 10 p.m. at night. So my sleep is a mess right now. I will absolutely be there Sunday morning for brunch. I don't know if I'll be awake, but I will definitely be there. I've been doing a lot of really intense meditating, and as an herbalist, I have been experimenting with something which is called just focusing on the simples rather than the blends. Usually, when I make an herbal remedy for people, it's a blend. And that's great. You know, blends are wonderful. Sometimes a blend will have up to 15 different herbs in it. It can get to be complicated, right? Because there are a lot of chemical constituents in plants. But what I've been focusing on instead is just in shamanism and in the spirituality of the plants. We try to focus on one plant at a time so that you develop a relationship with that plant. You have an intimate relationship with that plant, and are able to learn or experience the vibration of that plant. So, what happened was that I was doing strong chamomile, and I was meditating on the energy of chamomile. And for whatever reason, I felt really good on chamomile. I felt like so much happier. It is in the Asteraceae family, Compositae family, as is dandelion and calendula. It looks like the sun. It makes you sunny, which is why it's associated with helping with anxiety and depression. But it also has salicylates and other compounds in it, which can help with chronic pain. And I'd just been feeling exhausted and worn down. So I, and cranky. You know, anybody who saw my zoo review on Broke Aristocrats, I've been feeling a bit cranky. So I decided, this light's a little too bright. I decided that I was going to just focus on the basics, go back to the basics. And the first plant I had ever learned about was chamomile as a young herbalist in my, at 9 years old or whatever. And the idea was to use high amounts of the compound, like extremely strong teas, and just sip several cups of extremely strong chamomile, which supposedly can be used. It's one of the herbs that can be used for remote viewing. And so that's what I did. I used it to do some remote viewing, and I put myself in the shoes. You know, as a heart-centered remote viewer, I try to embody and put myself in the shoes of everybody, and hopefully it will develop some empathy. And I literally put yourself in the shoes of another person. And what I felt when I put myself in the shoes of Donald Trump was that I felt like I was kind of in an ivory castle in the White House, and everybody wanted to talk to the king. I was the star of the show. Everybody was trying to get to the White House, to get to the hill, to get to the mountain, to get to the White House. But then, separate from this kingdom that I was the head of in the White House, was this little problem I was having. over yonder, which was called Congress. And I began to feel the rift as Donald Trump between myself in the kingdom as the king in the White House and Congress. So this was my first impression as a remote viewer when I put myself in the shoes of Donald Trump. And you surround yourself with sycophants, and their job is to make you look good. Their job is to be praise singers, right? They're supposed to applaud you and make you look good. And he is the wonderful Fairly Goes Sir Robin. This was the function. This is the function of a praise singer all the way back to Homer, right? In the Odyssey, was that people were paid to praise you and to put you in the history books as some great king. So that was the job of Congress, and that was the job of the cabinet, and that was the job of the people that surround Donald Trump. Bravely goes Sir Robin, bravely goes Sir Donald. That was their job. And what has become increasingly obvious to me as I put myself in the shoes of people like Mike Johnson and other members of Congress is that there is a rift with the praise singers. The praise singers are having a problem because your job as somebody who gets paid with my tax dollars and his and her tax dollars, your job is not to be a praise singer. And the problem with the people currently in the White House is that they lost focus and they forgot what their job was. Your job is not to be the praise singer of Donald Trump and to do everything in your power to make him look good, no matter what the evidence is. Your job is to serve the American people to the best of your ability to make America a better country, a more perfect union. And by serving as the praise singer of the president, you have actually worked against the American people and worked against the goal of creating a more perfect union. And before we go attacking Republicans, we could say the same thing about the Clinton administration. No matter how much he lied through his teeth, there were people jumping up and down and praising Bill Clinton when there was real evidence that Biden was ill and that he may have shown evidence of cognitive decline, that he was not ready to do a second term, that the right thing to do was to step down. This is something that Harris talks about in her book. Her job was to sit back, not get into his shade, make him look good, not be too brilliant, tone herself down. Her wings were clipped. And anybody and everybody that was around Biden was to make him look good. Bravely goes Sir Biden. And Biden did a lot of good things for me. I don't want to make it out like I'm not appreciative, working out, loan forgiveness for students who had paid into the system and should have had their loans forgiven. So I'm not saying that Biden didn't do great things. I'm saying that this is a turning point in our nation's history where we have to ask ourselves, what are we all doing? Are we all working, contributing to create a more perfect union? Or are we just praise singers for our guy? Whether our guy is Bill Clinton or Biden or Trump or George Jr. or Hillary or Harris, it doesn't matter. The bottom line is that particularly if you're serving if you're a public servant, your job is to serve your constituents. And sometimes that means making tough decisions. Your job is not to toe the line for your political party. And that's the problem with party politics. Your job is to serve the American people and do what is best for the country. And that means sometimes having to make decisions which go against the president and sometimes go against your party. And so, what we see happening, this rift between the king who sits in the White House and Congress, is that Congress is beginning to have a meltdown. And when we talk about a meltdown, it's very clear to me as a remote viewer using heart centered remote viewing, which is the technique we use here. It's based on Bon and Vajrayana Buddhism. It's the most ancient form of remote viewing. And that, it's discussed in the art of war. If you want to win a war, you've got to be able to think how your enemy thinks. You've got to be able to get into their head. What do they want? Where is their head? Where are they going? Right? So, how I feel as Mike Johnson is that this is a tidal wave. This is a tidal wave, and I cannot stop the change. You cannot stop the change, and you cannot stop the tidal wave. And you are going to have to make a very serious decision if you are Mike Johnson or any member of Congress right now. Are you going to continue to be a praise singer when the evidence is irrefutable that Donald Trump had a close relationship with Epstein and was drawing kiddie porn pictures? Because that's what he did. Or are you going to have to allow this process to unfold? And if it does, this president is finished. And we're now at that point. We're at that tipping point where we have to let the chips fall where they may. And the truth is going to come out about Donald Trump. And people in positions of power are going to have to ask themselves, what have you been doing? And the greater issue for all of us as Americans is we either stop the party politics and begin to think about what we can do to heal our lives and to contribute to the good and the unity of the country, or we can continue to feed this division that is ultimately going to take this country down. Be the change you want to see in the world. Be the leader. Be the leader. Be the leader that you want. Be the guru that you seek. If you were looking for a guru, what would the character of that individual be? That is when we see real change in the world. So I thought I would throw cards. I have a setup. A lot of people had requested I do this. It was a bit of a pain in the tuchus learning how to do this, but we do have. Yay! You see how nice that looks? Isn't that pretty? Look at that. It's a little bit too high here. You can see my beautiful legs here. Let's see if we can't. Okay. There we go. There we go. That's much better. Let's go ahead. We'll do the empath's prayer. I think Jim Jordan is one of those people who has always been defending awful people, pedophiles, rapists, and now Donald Trump. And he is one of those creepy people who is sitting in DC for the sole purpose of helping Donald Trump stay in power. He is a great praise singer. That is who and what he is. He is a great praise singer. You want a good praise singer? Hire Jim Jordan. But is he a good American? Is he good for the American people? Is this creating unity for the country? Lying about the person who killed Charlie Kirk, making it out that it's that This is what Democrats want, that those liberals want to go kill and slaughter anybody that we have a problem with, which simply is not. I don't know anybody who thinks like that. I don't know anybody who thinks like that. And yet, if it will continue to push their cause and their agenda, they'll go for it. Never mind that it's creating incredible unhappiness and division amongst the American people by holding on to these beliefs. And that kind of division is precisely why Charlie Kirk is dead. It's not promoting peace, harmony, kumbaya, and unity and cooperation. And we either get with the program and start thinking in terms of all of us have to be the leader. It's like that song, follow the leader, follow the leader, follow the leader. But the question is, are you the leader? Are you the leader? Because if you're having a meltdown and you're wondering, um, if you're wondering how to save yourself, this is not how you do it. What's that song? Oh, it's one of those dance songs, you know. It's one of those songs you think about when you are, you got to be the leader, right? You got to be the leader. Here you go. This will be your inspiration today, right? It's real simple lyrics.
The room is on fire. Follow the leader, 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 follow the leader. Follow the leader, 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 follow the leader. Follow me. Follow the leader, 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 follow the leader.
All right, the roof is on fire, folks. The roof is on fire. What are you going to do about it? All right, without further ado, I only did 15 seconds. Hopefully, they won't get me in trouble for that. All right, let's go ahead and do the MPAS prayer, and let's see what more we can see about the future of Congress and everything else that's going on right now. Thank you for your love and support. Be sure and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. As we march slowly, I'm going to just try and lower this a little bit. As we march slowly, slowly, my loves, towards 100,000. I believe in you. I believe in you. I believe in me. I think we can do it. I think we can do it. It's time. It's time, right? We've been here for almost 7 years doing remote viewing. It's time for me to hit 100,000. Okay. I want to call on white light protection for myself and this community as we ask permission from Spirit to access the Akashic records. We call on our spirit guides and our good angels to be with us. Please give us the clarity and the wisdom that is needed to empower all of us on our journeys to make the best decisions for ourselves, our families, the planet, the people we love, but also to help those that we may have strife with. And together, collectively, as a community, we say, Amen. Let's do it. Let us go ahead and shuffle the cards and let's see what we find. Thank you all for being here. Civil war, why? Why would you want to go into civil war? Why don't we instead cool the heat? Be the leader. You know, the roof is on fire and you don't have a leader, or you are doubting whether or not leadership can bring us to peaceful resolution, then you must be that. You should be the one that's choreographing the get-togethers and inviting people that are Trump supporters and or not Trump support. You know, anybody in your family who disagrees with you politically, uh, be the leader. Create unity. Why does it have to be so tense? Agree to disagree. Instead, focus on the things you do agree on: good food, good friendship, loyalty, ethics, being a decent person, you know. But the division we see in our homes, the division we see in our families, those are the divisions we're seeing in the greater country. And for the good of the country, you and I need to be above that. So I want to go in and peer into Congress. That is my first. Jim Jordan. He is that person who is going to do everything in his power to protect this administration. Now it's $100,000 to be a foreign worker. It's just not rational, right? So what's the takeaway? We want Americans to be hired, right? We don't want foreign workers. We want to pressure companies to hire Americans. Is that the goal? So if the goal is to hire Americans, we just tell people, well, you'll have to pay massive amounts of money, and then that'll discourage you from hiring foreigners. And so if you're having to pay $100,000 for a foreign worker, then that'll teach you, right? That's going to teach you that the better thing to do is to hire Americans, and then you won't have to pay 100,000. It's an interesting idea. Particularly if you think that foreign workers are taking away jobs from Americans. So if that is the intention, it's an interesting idea. In the government, we think about the Hierophant as the higher ethos of the government. And the higher ethos of the government is the Constitution. So the Constitution is the law of the land. The law of the land is the Constitution, and it remains as the base of the issue. Are we willing to think in terms of ultimately what is best for the nation? What's interesting is that you have this card coming up right now, which I think is rather interesting, and that is the card of the King of Cups. And the King of Cups is like a peacemaker. I do think that Mike Johnson has lost control of this Congress, and the only way that he's going to create peace in Congress is to listen to the will of the people and the will of the constituents that's coming through Congress. And I would not give up on Mike Johnson just yet, because he is at a turning point. I really feel that Mike Johnson is at a turning point. And part of that turning point is that he's going to have to surrender to the will of the people. And that means handing over all documents and releasing everything on the Epstein. He can't save Trump. That's the bottom line. And where Congress is right now, the interesting thing is that Congress presents as possibly leaving, that people are on their way out the door. It is true what Harris says, Kamala Harris, that it is a profoundly broken system. But the way of bringing the system, because everybody is thinking in terms of what's best for them, you have your dark money and your constituents. But the bottom line is that Congress is going to have to answer for it. Every single member of Congress is going to have to go before the American people and answer the question, where were you? Were you bought and sold? And so I see many members of Congress leaving. Congress is not going to stay. Eight of Cups, it's not just about the fact that the Democrats are taking over. I think that that's kind of missing the deeper spiritual meaning here. The deeper spiritual meaning here is that this is not sustainable. It is not sustainable. And for that reason, because it is not sustainable, many people will choose to leave. And the crossing card is real confusion. If you don't know who you are loyal to, if you don't know which master you serve, you're going to have a problem in this administration. You simply don't know which master you serve. Well, I serve at the pleasure of the president. Well, I serve. No, you should serve the American people first and foremost and the Constitution. The fact that the Seven of Cups, it's based on this interesting idea of being in your cups, being drunk, being delusional. It was drawn at a time when heroin was epidemic in the United States. You used to be able to just go to a pharmacy. It was put out by Bear Aspirin. They're the ones that had heroin, opioids were no side effects, and you could simply go to a drugstore, buy your heroin, shoot it up. And the 1930s was when we saw heroin addiction. Of course, things haven't changed much with the Sokler family. With people dying of all kinds of opioid addictions, it was the same thing, putting these drugs on the market, and come what may. So when the card was originally drawn, people used to go to opium dens in Europe. France was known for their opium dens, and in London, women had their lanolin, where they would sit and they would drink and they would get into these clouds of delusion, the clouds, the puffing of the opium. And anytime you have cups, cups are associated with emotion and the element of water. And water element is driven by the emotion of fear. If you're looking at this, she was a brilliant woman, Pam Coleman, and she integrated parts of TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, which few people know existed in her cards. But when we think about the emotions of cups, there are beautiful aspects to cups, but there's also fear and delusion. And so we see here that members of Congress could be leaving, and that there's this confusion or this element of just real delusion where people honestly don't know what has happened. They don't know what has happened to their country, and they don't know why they've screwed up. They don't know why they're lost. They don't understand what the problem is. I thought I was a good congressperson. I thought I was a good little soldier, right? I was doing everything for the will of the president. But you missed the point, because that's not why you go to Congress. You go to create a more perfect union and to follow the Constitution, which is the greater law, or the higher ethos of the country. And what is above is the Ace of Wands, which would indicate some kind of rebellion or war. Wands are ruled by the fire signs, the cardinal signs, like Aries, which is Mars energy, and the sun of Leo. And its elements are wood and fire. Wood feeds fire. The liver, when it becomes angry, you have rising fire. Oh, my gallbladder, right? That anger feeling that's coming up. This interesting energy can also be entrepreneurship, new business. But the next 30 days, we're seeing some kind of aggressive action by Congress. Four of Wands can be a 4-month period if you're reading your wands as a month in time. It's often typified by the season of spring. When we think of the wood element, it's the springtime. And we can see that beautiful April, the 4th month, the time of new beginnings and building new things, which is also part of the Four of Wands, the wedding canopy. So we have this construction of something new coming in the next 30 days. And karma, the karmic wheel is approaching when it comes to Congress. So there's some kind of a karmic change that's happening, and hanging things up. I'm telling you, folks, as sure as I'm sitting here, that this president is going to be hung up, that it will reach a tipping point. That is the best way to describe the energy that I feel when I meditate on Congress, that they simply have to let, it's going to overwhelm them, and they're just going to, they cannot continue to keep the door closed. No matter how much Jim Jordan is really good at this. This is what Jim Jordan does. He's really good at suppressing evidence against creepy people who do awful things. The same with Acosta, who was in a private hearing with Congress, having to answer questions about Epstein, who he helped get off from hundreds and hundreds of genital assault cases. That's what rape is, folks. It's when you assault the genitalia of somebody. And Jeffrey Epstein was a man that enjoyed assaulting the genitalia of children, and he assaulted the genitalia of hundreds of children. And Trump thought it was great. He was having a jolly good time. Now, there's evidence, people that have come forward that say that Trump went to those orgies, that Trump participated in those orgies. Trump thought it was great. Kids running around in Grecian gowns being sex slaves. Isn't that fun? Drawing pictures of prepubescent children for Epstein. So the takeaway here is that this president is finished, that there really isn't a way to protect him, and he is not long for this world. I really don't think so. I really don't think so, because this is the energy of a karma coming to bite you in the ass. First off, if you look at the past placement in the cards, we have the karmic wheel, and then we also have the hanged man. But also, the first house is to walk away in a state of confusion. What do I feel as Jim Jordan when I go into this energy? I feel that I genuinely didn't know. I genuinely didn't know. I genuinely didn't believe it was true. When I heard rumors about Donald Trump and Epstein, I really was so delusional. I really believed that it was a hoax. I really believed that the rumors about Trump's corruption and everything else was just a Democratic. I really believed it. People truly can lie to themselves. And that's what we see with Mike Johnson. And we see a reassessing, because Mike Johnson is associated with the higher ethos. And so for that reason, I think that Mike Johnson is going to have to surrender to the will of the people. And that means that he is going to have to break with Jim Jordan. He can no longer toe the line for this president. That doesn't mean he stops being a conservative. That doesn't mean that Marjorie Taylor Greene stops being a conservative. They're still conservatives. It's just that they're conservatives that no longer have faith in the president. There's an Ace of Swords moving in as well. And that's interesting because it means a time of victory for Congress, and the opposition is the courts. The other thing that's going to come up is that that Congress cannot be at war with the courts. That how badly do you want to continue to help a president who is on thin ice with the courts? So then what happens is you start obstructing justice to protect this president, and then what happens? You wind up in jail because you've been obstructing justice. And there are many people that have gone to jail because they've aided and abetted this president in obstructing justice. So the opposition to Congress at this time is that they may find themselves doing certain things that are on the wrong side of the courts. And then the hope and fear at this time is the Queen of Cups, the business of Congress, and then the final outcome is the King of Pentacles. It's interesting. I see this break happening with Johnson, and then there's something about a new man coming in. I don't know. They keep talking about Trump is going to do this next year and that next year, and maybe he will. But his cards and his health wane after about 3 months. And I don't know what that's about. But I'm seeing major changes in Congress. I think many people will be leaving Congress. I don't think that Congress will be able to stop it from happening. And I think that Johnson will break with the president. I think that it's going to cause him to have real problems and ethical issues with Jim Jordan. I truly believe he lied to himself and told himself that this wasn't real, and that when it became irrefutable to certain members of the Republican Party, when their constituents started to confront them, they had no choice. Some of them will leave. Something like 20-30 will be leaving Congress, either a decision to retire or because they know they can't win back their seats. But I'm seeing at least 23 seats flipping. So you can go ahead and put that in your calendar that we're looking at 23 seats flipping. I don't know how many are needed in order to win back the House, but how many GOP members of Congress, how many Democrats? Because I'm getting the number 23. So unless things change, we're looking at a change of so Republicans are at 219 seats and Democrats are at um, at 213. So that means that we will probably sweep the floor with them, because if we're at 213 as Democrats and then we add 23 seats, that gets us to 246 seats. And it's a huge blow to the Republicans because that gets them down to 100 and something seats. If they're at 219 and they lose 23 seats, they're only down to 196 seats. So even if Trump were to survive, which is questionable at this point, looking at these cards, he's going to be lame duck. And then you can see Justice comes in. I think about Justice a lot when I think about the Queen of Swords because she carries the sword of truth. Ultimately, the bottom line is that if they continue in this trajectory, the Republican House will be accused of obstruction of justice. And I also see with the new man coming in, the King of Pentacles, that there's new potential leadership. And I don't know if that's because Mike Johnson agrees to step down due to lack of confidence, but I'm seeing somebody else emerging in Congress with that King of Pentacles. Also, there's a switch potentially with the president, because this is my president's card as the Emperor. And there's just a lot of movement here. There's so much movement here. Eight of Cups, which is to walk away from everything, but also the Chariot moving into eighth position as an obstacle with that Emperor coming in. And I'm seeing major changes between now and April. I don't know if, there could be special elections also that take them out, but this is a very unstable Congress, and I simply don't think that they can afford to continue to come in for this new president. The other thing that's interesting is the Emperor clarifies over the King of Pentacles, and the King of Pentacles is J.D. Vance. And I want to just say people are not happy about the fact that J.D. Vance is going to, but you have to think in terms of what it is. Part of being a remote viewer is that you put yourself in the shoes of the other. And as a Republican, how would you feel? And I'm getting pretty darn comfortable and feeling a lot more relieved about a J.D. Vance presidency than about this presidency for a number of reasons, not just the Epstein scandal, but also real concerns about his cognitive health and his physical health, as well as what's going on in Europe. Looks like we're very dangerously close to World War III, and that Poland is probably going to do a first strike, and that's going to force NATO to have to make some kind of a response. No, the bottom line is that I feel a no confidence for, that they don't have confidence for this president. It is the thing that if Johnson wants to save his career, he very likely could step down as leader of the House as a result of this, because he cannot stop this tidal wave. And that's the best way I could describe it. All right. Wow, very intense, and I'm so glad we went there. I want to thank you all for watching this video from the Oracle of Whimsy. If you're trying to get in for a reading with me, you can find all that information below this video. And again, if you could subscribe, that's often as we march bravely towards 100,000 subscribers. Okay, everyone, be kind to all, so that all will be kind to you too. God bless. Peace out. We'll see you next time, everyone. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.